that took place on Rosh Chodesh Nisan that the Rebbe spoke about in two different letters in Tafshin Mem Aleph. This little piece over here is like a combination of two letters. It took me a while to figure that out because I saw one half in one letter, another half in another letter, and then in this other sefer they like combined them together. And we're going to skip around a little bit over here. But by way of introduction, we already know a lot of this information from yesterday's Kriya. In yesterday's, if you were paying attention to yesterday's Kriyas HaTorah and yesterday's Maftir, everything the whole idea that the Rebbe associates is going to be recalling what we had in the Kriyas HaTorah on Parshas Pekudei, what we had in the Kriyas HaTorah on Parshas Chodesh, the second Sefer Torah we took out, and what we had about not just the Kriyas HaTorah, but also the Kriyas HaHaftorah, the Kriya of the Maftir. And all of this is going to be discussed over here right now. So, like I said, this is from Rosh Chodesh Nisan Tafshin Mem Aleph, Parshas Chodesh V'Hakamas HaMishkan B'Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Like Sima mentioned, that this was today. Ha'irav Avoyos Hashem. Shnei Mu'rois Ikrim Yisrachshu B'Tarech Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Two principal events and occurrences took place on the date of the first of the month of Nisan. V'aleim is super repeated b'Torah, and it's related about them in detail in the Torah. B'Torah shebeksav. First of all, you have it in the written Torah, and but yeser pirut varchava, and even more detail and more broaden the topic. B'Torah shebapeh, in the oral Torah. Hamura harishon Yisrachish, the first event occurred when the Yidden were in Golus Mitzrayim, on this day they were commanded, this month is for you the head of months, which is Parshas Chodesh, which we read yesterday in the second Sefer Torah. But, so this HaChodesh HaZalochem Rosh Chodashim is about the first day of the month of Nisan. Reish is Koil HaMitzvah Rishayna. First of all, it was the first mitzvah, Kiddush HaChodesh, which the Rebbe in a different letter talks about. This is, like I said, this is a combination of different letters. He talks about Kiddush HaChodesh. We're not going to talk about this today. That's the first mitzvah that the Yidden received. Sha'oisa kibel am Yisrael ka'am. It's the first mitzvah that the Jewish people received as a nation, to such a degree that because of that, Rashi said that there was a havamina, there was a consideration, or there was a question, how come the Torah didn't begin from HaChodesh HaZalochem? Since Torah is about directives, it's lessons. The simple meaning of the word Torah is a directive, a lesson, teaching Yidden what to do. It's an instruction manual. Up till HaChodesh HaZalochem, everything that took place was not an instruction to the Yidden. Even mitzvahs that we have that took place before Matan Torah, we don't do it, the Rambam says, because Avraham Avinu was instructed or because Yaakov Avinu was instructed. We only do it because Moshe received it on Har Sinai. So really, the Chazal say, it would have made sense that the Torah should have begun with what it says in Parshas Bo, because that's the first mitzvah us as Klal Yisrael received. And the mitzvah specifically was the mitzvah of sanctifying the new moon. That sanctification of new moon, not being mevorach as a chodesh. Sanctification of new moon actually takes place on Rosh Chodesh itself. That the witnesses testify to Bezdin that we saw the new moon, and Bezdin says, okay, today is Rosh Chodesh. Ubad bevad, and along with this mitzvah, this first mitzvah, the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh that was given on this idea of this first of the month of Nisan, immediately Hilchas Karban Pesach immediately was given, again, like we read in the Parshas Chodesh, we read in yesterday's second Sefer Torah. We learned halachas of the Karban Pesach, the Chag Pesach, and the halachas of the Yom Tov Pesach in prateim v'prati prateim, with their details and the details of their details, or like one of my kids says, details. Hamura Sheni Hisrachish b'Rosh Chodesh Nisan sheba miyad la'achar oisei Rosh Chodesh Nisan na'amur. The second event, the Rebbe said there were two events. Later on, he's going to mention a third event. He said there's two events that took place on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. The one that took place, the first one, was when the Yidden were in Geulah, and that's going to be a big emphasis here in this letter of the Rebbe. The second one took place on the very following Rosh Chodesh Nisan. In other words, there was what took place on Rosh Chodesh Nisan in the year 2448, when the Yidden were still in Mitzrayim, 15 days before they left Mitzrayim. And then there was the year following that, the next Rosh Chodesh Nisan took place another event. This was when the Yidden were fully free in the ultimate way of freedom. The emphasis over here can be explained that there's different ideas of freedom. First of all, we know already, the Chazal say that from Tishrei of 2448, Batla Ashibud Mavisenu, they weren't anymore enslaved in Mitzrayim. I believe we mentioned this in the Sikha last week. So they were in a state of relatively free, but they weren't allowed to leave the country. So they weren't fully free. Then there was when they left Mitzrayim, but Egypt was still a power. They were still a strong country, to the degree that when Egypt, the party, had a change of heart and started changing after the Yidden felt terrified and so on, and they weren't fully free of Parai until Shvi Shal Pesach, until there was the miracle of the splitting of the sea, where the whole army drowned in the sea, etc., etc. So then, in a physical, material sense, was when they were completely free in that regard. Then there's even a more so freedom. There's the freedom of Matan Torah that we say, the Chazal say that the writing was Charus ala luchos, engraved on the tablets. Al tikre Charus, do not read it engraved ala cherus, that it was a matter of freedom. That when the Yidden really attained freedom, freedom is really attained through the Torah. And as this idea will be really part of a lot of the sikh of this letter that Rebbe is going to speak later on. So therefore, and the Mishkan was built after the giving of the Torah. The giving of the Torah was in Chodesh Sivan 2448, 7 weeks after Yetzias Mitzrayim. The next Tishrei, after Yom Kippur, Moshe came down from Har Sinai, he gathered everybody together, and he told them, and he prepared them, etc., etc., and the Chazal speak about why it took so long from after Yom Kippur till Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But in the end, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, we learned, was the Mishkan. I'm already speaking ahead of what the Sikha is saying. So, the Matzav Shel Cherus were Gadol, third line, the second paragraph. They were in a state of freedom and a great light, a great illumination, as the Lashon, the Haggadah says, Ul Yad Har Sinai, and they were still located in their encampments. They hadn't yet left Har Sinai. It's brought down that the cloud that rested on Har Sinai stayed over there until the Mishkan went into operation. And once the Mishkan went into operation, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, so the cloud moved from Har Sinai to the Mishkan, and then afterwards the Yidden were free to go whenever Hashem decided that they should leave. So, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, on that very day, the very day that a year before they were told the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh and Karban Pesach and all the mitzvahs having to do with Pesach, so that very day of Rosh Chodesh Nisan, a year later, Hukam HaMishkan Migdash, the Mishkan was erected, which is really a Migdash, like it says, V'asali Migdash Shchanti B'soicham. The Mishkan is called a Migdash. B'mloi Kedushasei V'tifartoi, in its full holiness and glory. So the Rebbe explains in the footnote number 13, what's the expression over here in its full holiness and glory? Because prior to that, at least according to Rashi and so on, for 7 days prior to Rosh Chodesh Nisan, it's also that way according to other Mefarshim, from Chav Gimel Adar till Rosh Chodesh Nisan, they kept on practicing. They put it up, they took it down, they put it up, they put it down. It was the Shivas Yimei HaMiluyim, it's called. And then, like we have soon, we're going to have in Parshas Shmini in a few weeks, that was the 8th day after they finished practicing, and that was the day of Rosh Chodesh Nisan, when the Mishkan actually officially went into operation. It wasn't anymore a practice run, and Hashem's very Shechina rested upon it, and the glory of Hashem filled the Mishkan, like we also read in Parshas Pikudei. And this is also in Parshas Pikudei, it says that on the first of the month of Nisan, the Eibishter told him, you shall erect the Mishkan. And the same thing, and it says, that was in Shishi, and in Shvi, it says that on that day, on the first day of the month of Nisan, he erected it. Bashana Hashem is the second year from the Eden going out of the land of Mitzrayim. So then, that's when it began. All the matters that are connected with the Mishkan in general, whether it was the Shulchan, the Menorah, the Mizbeches, bringing in the Aron, etc. But primarily or especially, what we started doing today we started saying the Nasi. It began on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the offering of the sacrifices of the 12 Nesiim, of the leaders of the tribes of Yisrael. Lemin hakorbanos eglos u'baker she'viu kol shnei maser yachtov yom harishon Rosh Chodesh Nisan, beginning with the korbanos that all the Nesiim brought together to inaugurate the Mishkan on the first day of Nisan, and then la'acher mekain, and after the first day, so then you had Nasi echad layoim, Nasi echad layoim, every day another head of another shevet brought it. That's the idea that we say the Nesiim every single day for the first 12/13 days of the month of Nisan. The Rebbe emphasizes it wasn't that they weren't worthy of it, or they had to wait because of something wrong. No. Moshe Rabbeinu himself, he brings down in footnote 15, Moshe himself was unsure if they would actually all be bringing it all at once. And not only that, but the Medrash says that even though all the Nesiim brought it over the next 12 days, Hashem considered it as if they all brought it in the same day. So we see this concept that they had to do. The first day was such a powerful day. Gam in Yonam Elam, also these ideas. Heim bekesher la kamas ha-mishkan, both concerning erecting the Mishkan. Veheim bekesher la korbanos ha-nesiim, and also concerning the offerings of the Nesiim. Mesuparim b'Torah b'archava Geulah, they are related in the Torah in great emphasis and very broad. In other words, he doesn't mince words over here. Because their importance is emphasized by how much the Torah speaks about the Karbonos and the Nesiim and about erecting the Mishkan, as the Rebbe speaks about why all the idea of putting up the Mishkan is talked about in the halachas and what they would have to do over 5 parshas, Truma, Tetzaveh, Tisa, Vayachal, Pikudei. Why is that? Because anything that's very important by Hashem, very valuable by Hashem, has a special chashivas, the Torah will expand lots of words on it. So the Rebbe goes on and says, these are really part of one continuum. It's very important. The Rebbe always speaks about this concept that to be able to have 2 things that are 2 things occurring on the same date, it's not by happenstance. It is something that is showing that it's sharing the same date because they really have a connection between the 2. And that's why they share the same date. So if Rosh Chodesh Nisan 2448 was the time when they had this command of the Korban Pesach in Galus Mitzrayim, and Rosh Chodesh Nisan 2449, they erected the Mishkan. It must be that they're joined in some way. They have like some type of continuation between them. Shnei Murois Elam, these two events. Despite the fact that they occurred, like we said before, in two distinct dates and two distinct locations even. One was in Mitzrayim and one was at Har Sinai. What could be the most, even a more greater extreme? Here you have Ervas Ha'aretz, the most immoral, lowest place in the world, and here you have the heights of heights, Har Sinai. Nifradim u'menugadim. They are not just separate, but they are total opposites, two complete extremes. Avdus v'cheirus. This is going to be the theme that the Rebbe is going to emphasize. Their servitude versus freedom. Mitzrayim v'Har Sinai. Mitzrayim is servitude. Har Sinai is about freedom. Still in all, they are connected with a strong bond. Such a degree that they express and they make really one continuum. They are really one thing that's happening over two different times. So the Rebbe continues, the inner point in this matter is, still while the Yidden were in exile, while they were in Mitzrayim, Yidden received the empowerment to be fully free, truly free. How does a Yid become truly free and completely free? Through Hashem giving them the mitzvahs. That they create an everlasting bond, the ichud, and a union between Hashem and the Eibishter. And this is like the Rebbe points out, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. It's a union that sets them higher than all constraints and boundaries, of the boundaries and the order of the world. This matter is expressed and brought from the state of potential that it was when they were in Mitzrayim. It was actualized and strengthened when? By the case, by making a sanctuary, making a mikdash, and I shall dwell within them. By having the actual Mishkan erected and functioning and having the Shekhinah rest upon it, that's the actualization of that empowerment that was given to them on Rosh Chodesh Nisan a year before. Hein lefi ha-mishmos ha-pshuta shel ha-milim v'hein lefi tochen ha-amak yoser v'apnimi. Both from the simple meaning of the words that Vasli Migdash Chanti B'Soicham means that literally Hashem will dwell in the Migdash. That's a simple meaning. And of course there's a deeper meaning. That the inner meaning of that sentence is B'nei Yisrael v'chol echad mi-Yisrael, the Jewish children, every single Yid, Oisim bekirbam ubesvivasam migdash v'dir lakadosh baruch hu. They make within them and in their environment a sanctuary and a home for Hashem. Kach to such a degree shashchina alikis sheichenes b'chol leiv Yehudi, that the godly Shechina rests in every Jewish heart, ub'chol bayis Yehudi, and every Jewish home, gam bezman hagolus, even in the time of exile. Kasher beis hamigdash hagashmi ein mekayim b'ofen zmani. When the physical beis hamigdash does not exist, at least temporarily, we still have been given this gift of Asli Migdash Chanti B'Soicham, that even after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, we still have the Asli Migdash Chanti B'Soicham. We still bring in within ourselves the sanctuary. We have the idea of B'nai Chodesh. The lesson directed from all the above to every Jew, man and woman, concerning actual action in the day-to-day life is Kol Yehudi b'chol zmanim b'chol makom, is every Yid in any time and in any place. Chai v'sharui b'shnei hamatzavim, he lives and rests in the two states and situations she'oisam maskil lonu atarich Rosh Chodesh Nisan, that the Rosh Chodesh Nisan reminds us of these two states. That and the reason why it's reminding us is because we are living in both simultaneously. Avdus v'cheres, servitude and freedom. Mibchinas haneshama, from the standpoint of the neshama, she chelkel kamemal mamish, it's a part of Hashem above, from above mamish. HaYehudi utamid ben chayrim, a Yid is always a free person. And the Rebbe in the footnote points out the famous Sikha of the Friedrich Rebbe, that only our bodies went into exile and not our neshama, and therefore a guy cannot tell a Yid what to do when it comes to Torah mitzvahs. From the perspective of the neshama, he does not become subservient to any person and to any matter, milvad, except la Kodesh Baruch Hu atzmoi, only Hashem. Ha'omer, that Hashem says, ki li b'nei Yisrael avodim, that to me the Jewish children are servants. Avodayhem, they are my servants. V'la avodim la'avodim, they are not servants to servants. V'yiseidem v'yosim zeh, being a servant does not mean that we are in servitude, but rather Eved Melech Kim Melech Melech. The Chazal say the servant of a king is actually like and the king. So therefore, being a servant of Hashem does not in any way limit us, and does not mean that we have gone from the servitude Chas v'Sholom of Mitzrayim and now we're in the servitude of Hashem. The true release, our true freedom, is when we are servants of Hashem, because then we are mamish like the king. That's all from the perspective of the neshama. The Ram, Mebchinas Haguf, as opposed to from the level and the perspective of the body, Sharia, or the Matzav Shalabdus, the person is in a state of servitude. How come? Haguf doiresh umachriach, the body demands and forces tipul, being taken care of. Hazana, it needs to be fed. Halbasha v'chol, it needs to be clothed, and other bodily needs. Davar zeh roisim es ha'adam, this harnesses the person. Ba'oil in a yoke shal asagas emtzoi ha'machayev v'akim shal guf ha'gashmi. He needs to do something to be able, he needs to be harnessed to acquiring the means that's going to give him life and give him sustenance of the physical body. Shal parnasi, he needs to go ahead and make a living. And especially how much more so when he has the literal servitude of being in exile. So even though we seem to be going in two different directions, the neshama and the body, with two different perspectives, yachdim zois, along with this, ein hagufa nefesh nei olam eshoinim v'nifradim. The body and the soul are not two distinct worlds and not two separate worlds. Ke'im yoitzrim yachad olam echad. Rather, they form together one world. Olam katan zeh ha'adam. Like Chazal say, a miniature world is the person. Now, when they're talking about the person, they're not just talking about the body or the neshama. Adam Shalom, we're talking about a complete person. Not a split person. He doesn't have a split personality. He's not cut into two, his neshama versus his body. That by him, his body and his soul lives together peacefully and in harmony. The Torah teaches us how does the body and the soul live in harmony. This harmony is reached when one causes the soul to overcome the body. And illuminating the body with the candle, which is a mitzvah, and the Torah, which is the light and the fire. Ad sha'aguf and nefesh mishabdim atzmom, until the body and the animal soul sublimate themselves. But they don't do so by force. They don't feel coercion. But rather, the Rebbe emphasizes, b'cheshik or b'chefetz leiv. They do so because they desire to do so. They want to be sublimated al neshama. They realize the wonderful thing of being in complete unity with the neshama. This idea is similar to in the physical world. In the physical world, our nefesh functions through the body. A healthy body allows the nefesh to function through it. I'm not even talking about the levels of a neshama. A healthy body, if a person wants to see, then the eye will see. If the ear wants to hear, it will hear. If it wants to walk somewhere, it'll walk somewhere. If the hand, if he wants to pick something up, the hand will pick it up. If for whatever reason the nefesh wants to see and the eye can't see, or he wants to walk somewhere and he can't walk over there, that shows not on the body, now the body has attained a whole new level, it's independent, it can do things other than what the neshama wants. No, that shows that the body is ill. It's not really living its full bodily life if it cannot fulfill, or it quote-unquote chooses not to fulfill what its nefesh wants. In a similar vein, the body can see, when the neshama illuminates it, that its best life is to be in one and in tandem with the neshama. That it's not, the neshama is free and I am enslaved to the world and we cannot meet. Then that's not called independence. Then that's called servitude. Independence and freedom is when the body is sublimated to neshama in a way that's with desire and chefetz leiv, like he says. We might continue on this topic on Wednesday, where we talk about simcha and so on. A person attains the level of the service of Hashem with all your heart, with both Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara. In other words, both of them are on the same page. They aren't attacking each other. They aren't fighting with each other. We're going to skip over now to a piece that speaks about the Rebbe over here in the next few pages is going to elaborate upon the participation and the involvement of the neshama and the body, how they both work together and so on. And then the Rebbe is going to bring a third coming event that also has to do with Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh Nisan, but it hasn't happened yet. And it's something that we read right at the beginning of the Haftorah, at least according to Nus Chabad. It's at the beginning of the Haftorah of Parsha Chodesh that we read yesterday in Shul. Let's start from the second paragraph on the page. In addition to the two events that was mentioned, that are very important, that are connected with the date of the first of Nisan. There's another important thing that's connected with Rosh Chodesh Nisan. It's also connected with the Beis HaMikdash, and it's also connected with Pesach, which the other two events also has to do. Rosh Chodesh Nisan, when they were Mitzrayim, had to do with all the halakhs of Korban Pesach and so on, and it had to do with the Beis HaMikdash, the erection of the Mishkan. On this event, the third event of the series that will occur on the first of Nisan is related in the prophecy of Yecheskel. That very Navi that explained that the meaning of going out of Mitzrayim, he likened it to the birth of the Jewish people. In the Haggadah, we quote from different psukim in Yecheskel indicating how the birth of the Jewish people took place when the Eden went out of Mitzrayim, and they used different types of metaphor, different metaphors of a baby's birth and so on. So this very same Navi that indicates that Eden going out of Mitzrayim is like the birth of the Jewish people, he also says as follows, quote, Barishon be'echad lachodesh. So the Rebbe in the parentheses explains, meaning Rish Chodesh Nisan. Goymer v'chiteisa es hamigdash. So again, the Rebbe explains the parentheses, to tire b'techanach es Beis HaMikdash, you will purify and dedicate the Beis HaMikdash. Inaugurate the Beis HaMikdash. Barishon ba'arba'asar yom l'chodesh. Once you've done the dedication of the Beis HaMikdash, the inauguration of the Beis HaMikdash on Rish Chodesh Nisan, so then on the first day Yom Tov, or the first day before Yom Tov, the 14th day of the month, by Yom HaBasar l'chodesh, on the 14th day of this month, Yilochem HaPesach, you will have the Yom Tov of Pesach, meaning that you are offering the Korban Pesach on the 14th. You actually eat it, the Yom Tov starts at night, but it starts already with the Korban Pesach being offered on the 14th. Chag Shavuos Yomim, a Yom Tov of 7 days. The Rebbe explains in the footnote over there, Shavuos is like Shivas, 7. Matzos Ya'achol, matzos should be eaten. Tasos Korban Pesach, Chag Shavuos Yom Teichel matzos, you should make the Korban Pesach, it's a Yom Tov, 7 days you shall eat matzos. Lacher Mekain Nimnim HaKarbonos Shoisam Yesh L'Hakriv, and afterwards, in the Haftarah, in that Nevuah of Yechezkel, it enumerates the Karbonos that we have to offer at that time. So he says, Yemoisa Moshiach Tluim Masein, or the saying like the Rebbe always quotes out the Rebbe in Tanya, that the days of Moshiach are dependent on our actions and service that we do in the time of Geulah. This prophecy of Yechezkel that we read in the Haftarah yesterday of Parsha Chodesh, it comes in connection with the third Beis HaMikdash that will be built through Moshiach. The idea of the days of Mashiach and their perfection, their completion, is dependent on in our actions and our service. Beis Nagos B'nai Yisrael, in the way the Eden act prior to Mashiach's coming. And in that itself, especially it's dependent, what's going to happen in Mashiach's times is especially dependent upon how we act in these latter generations of the exile, concerning all matters of Yiddishkeit, tshuva and Torah and mitzvahs. According to how we acted those things, that's how we cause and bring about what's going to happen when Mashiach comes, including this idea about Yechezkel, talking about what happens at Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And like the expression of our Chachamim, Zachu, when the Yidden merit, so then they will have Mashiach come quicker, etc. So Chassidus explains, Zachu is also from the word Zach, like Shem and Zay is Zach, that it's pure. Kasher Yehudim Oisem as Maseyem Ba'oifen Shel Zachu, when Yidden do in the way of their actions, in the way of Zachu, and the Rebbe says in the parentheses, Shemashma'usa Gamtara Ubehirus, that its meaning is also purity and clarity and brilliance, Zayin Psucha, with a pasach under the Zayin, instead of Zechus, but Zakus, with Shleimus, and Yidden do their avoid in the way of perfection. So all the matters that will take place in the times of Mashiach, which reflect what we did prior to it, will also be in a way of perfection. Second paragraph on the page, the concept that the Alter Rebbe uses, the language, our actions and our service, it expresses toil and effort, because to be able to transform the physical to the spiritual, or until a matter of perfection, like we said before, like the expression, transforming darkness to light and bitter to sweet. So that is Nidrish Amal Ravakash. This demands a lot of and much hard work, hard toil. So the Maseinu of the Seinu is not just something that is that's important. That's not just an action we do, but we have to put in the effort. This itself is part of the perfection of the matter. It's not that because we have to work hard, it somehow lessens the experience. It adds to the experience. When we work hard for something, we enjoy it so much more. The fact that a person worked hard for something, this gives him a feeling of delight and enjoyment. For the fact that he attained and he profited by his toil. Not that he just received an ordinary gift in a way of bread of shame, that he didn't earn it, just it landed on his doorstep. This idea of working hard so that we should be able to attain it and not be given it as bread of shame is one of the explanations why there had to be goals in general. Whether we're talking about the very exile that the neshama is in Geulah when it's inside the body. And also the literal exile. So because then we will truly appreciate and enjoy the fruits of our labor that's going to come with the Geulah. Especially so, how much more so when what we are involved in is transforming from light into light from darkness, which is a double and quadruple darkness that's to be found in the latter days of this Geulah. And we are making these latter days of Geulah, which are exceptionally dark, into a great light, not just an ordinary light, not just an ordinary darkness, but an ordinary light, a much more powerful darkness, into a greater light. Through this, we are making it even more powerful, this zachu that we said, this merit and this purity and brilliance that we are causing. The future redemption that's immediately going to come through Moshiach, comes in the manner like your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim. And not only does it come out like that, but even more so than the way it was when we went out of Mitzrayim. I will show you wonders like Gabit says Mitzrayim. Even in comparison to your going out of Mitzrayim, which was miraculous, it will still be considered wonders b'nisim gedolim yoyserim tzias Mitzrayim, with greater miracles than they're going out of Mitzrayim. The fichok, therefore, ein kol pella bekach. There's no wonder. In these latter days of the Geulah, yeshnam tkufis, there is often a nisyonis v'kashim gedolim ma'od. There are great and difficult tests in our day-to-day life according to Torah mitzvahs. On the other hand, it is a sure and clear thing. Since Hashem only asks according to our capability, He doesn't ask of us things that we cannot do. Surely He gave us the capabilities and the possibility to overcome all the difficulties and all the obstacles. To such a degree, even while they are in the darkness of Geulah, all the Jewish people was light in their settlements, like it says by Geulah Mitzrayim during Makas Chodesh, even though they were still in Egypt, they had light. They stand in a state of an outstretched hand. Yehudim Geim, proud Jews, Kufi Kaima, and standing upright. B'chol in Yone Yadus Yom Yom, in all matters of Yiddishkeit, in their day-to-day Yiddishkeit. This adds even more so in our going out with great wealth by having all this take place even prior to going out of Mitzrayim. Now the Rebbe is going to bring from a pasuk of the Kapitel Tillim that the Rebbe was I think saying that year. That was Kapitel Pei in Tehillim. This was Tafshin Mem Aleph, which is since Tafresh Samach Beis. He was going into his 80th year. Al Kol Zeh Kvar Hitzbiya David Malch Mashiach, and all of this, David King Mashiach already pointed out in the Im Zmiras Yisrael, the one who's the pleasant singer, the one who sings the matters of pleasantness for the Yidden. B'kesher Mitzis Mitzrayim, he said, in connection with going out of Mitzrayim, which we know it says, Gefem and Mitzrayim Tasiyah, the Jewish people are likened to a vine that you moved from where they were planted. The Yidden were like a vine planted in Egypt, and you journeyed them, you brought them on a trip. Ba'amri b'pasuk shalifnechein, by saying in the pasuk before Gefem Mitzrayim Tasiyah, it says, Elikim tzvokes hashivenu, Hashem tzvokes, return us, v'hoyer panecha, and shine your face, v'nivasheya, and we will be helped. HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvoidei b'atzmei meishivaisanu. Hashem, in his very glory and essence, he is the one that returns us. That's what it says, Elikim tzvokes hashivenu. And returning means both returning out of Geulah, like it says, that Hashem himself, Nigla Aleim Melch Malch Amlach Makadosh Baruch Hu Geolam, we say in the Gadol, Lo Yadei Malach, Lo Yadei Saraf, Lo Yadei Shaliach. It wasn't through Malachim, it wasn't through messengers, it was Hashem himself did it. And the meaning of Ashevenu, the Rebbe says parenthetically, is Ashevenu Gam B'Muvah Tshuva, that Hashem is the one that does and helps us and brings us to do tshuva. And like it says also in footnote 80, which through tshuva we know the Yidden go out of Geulah. Al Meir Panav Eleinu, and like it says over there in the pasuk, and he shines his face to us. V'sholech lanu es Yishuasa, and he sends us his saving. He sends us his help. In other words, this is the pasuk before Gefem Mitzrayim Tasiyah. Before it said that you took the vine out of Egypt and you made it travel. Before that it says Elikim Tzvok Shashevenu. Kaloyma, this means to say, Gam kasher nimtzoyim begolus, while we are still in Golus, kishoyd zekukim liyeshua, we still need the salvation, like it says only at the end, v'nivasheya, and we will be saved. So even before we have been saved, maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu oira l'chol Yehudi. It says v'hoyer panecha. Hashem brings a light to every Yid, u'l'chol Yehudim, and to all Yidden. V'kulam yachad nivashim v'negolim, and all of us together are helped and redeemed. And in such a manner, the way the matter is repeated, and the repetition indicates that it's strengthened by saying what? Not just repetition, but also by adding the name Yudke Vavke. But Tosefes Shem Havaya. At the end of this Kapitel Tillim, Kapitel Pei, it says Havaya Lekim Tzvok Hashevenu Hoyer Panechem Nivashea. Earlier in Pasuk Ches, it says only Elikim Tzvokes Hashevenu Hoyer Panechem Nivashea. At the end of the Kapitel, in Pasuk Chav, it says Havaya Elikim Tzvokes will return us and illuminate our and shine his face, and we will be helped. Which indicates we know Shem Yudke Vavke is b'midas harachmim, Hashem's attribute of mercy. Elikim is usually referred to as Hashem's gevura and might, but it's also including by adding this Havai Elikim Tzvokos, that also Hashem's attribute of mercy. Ubesi shal is galus, and it's the ultimate revelation, more so than just Elikim Tzvokos alone. Where the matter is expressed by the name Yudke Vavke, which the name Yudke Vavke is higher than all the other names of Hashem. It's called Hashem's essential name, the name of his essence. Then the Rebbe concludes with a bracha of Yiratzim should be the will of Hashem. Should call Echad v'achas mitanu, every single man and woman from amongst us. B'soiche Klal Yisrael, amongst the whole Klal Yisrael. Yigal es alakus hanimtzas et kolach v'achas, should reveal the godliness that's found by every man and woman. That's the idea of Osli Migdash Chanti B'Soicham, the Shechina, the Kvoid Hashem, Moles HaMishkan, like we read yesterday's Chumash in Parsh Pekudei. B'Mloi Amida, in the fullest sense, like it says, Kvoid Hashem, Moles HaMishkan, the glory of Hashem filled the Mishkan. Shaydei Kachtia Miyad Avsharus Le'Natzal Kol HaKochs V'Avsharus Nitna Lanu Loi V'La, through Hashem's revelation of His godliness, there'll be immediately the possibility to use all the powers and capabilities that was given to either the man or the woman. Will be in the first line of the army of Hashem, of the hosts of Hashem. V'yikuyim, it will be fulfilled. Ki meitzeizcham me'eretz Mitzrayim, that like a day is going out the land of Mitzrayim, and what happened then? It says, "Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh hoitzi Hashem es bnei Yisrael goymer." And this very day, Hashem took out the bnei Yisrael al tzivoism upon their hosts. This should actually occur immediately. Begula mitzvah shleima the Moshiach tzedkenu b'kar mamish, in the true and complete redemption through Moshiach tzedkenu speedily mamish.